Sue and I are a little bit on opposite ends of agreement as it relates to this topic. And the topic is generative AI being the next big bet in financial services.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and the direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. This is Brian Lutz, Chief Marketing Officer of Elite Consulting Partners. And with me today, my favorite podcast partner, Miss Sue Cheema.
Hello, the Chief Information Officer at Elite Consulting Partners and JEDI.
So, Sue, this is a podcast that kind of came up abruptly, I'll say. And for the listening audience, this is going to be probably, in my opinion, a little bit more of a fun podcast because we're moving away from the format of providing more information, and I think that this one's going to lead itself more to a debate because
love it.
Sue and I are a little bit on opposite ends of agreement as it relates to this topic. And the topic is generative AI being the next big bet in financial services.
I agree. It's everywhere.
And so the debate here is generative AI being the next big thing, where Sue agrees with that statement and I am more cautious around utilizing generative AI in a financial services practice. And maybe this is my PTSD from having to deal with so many different compliance officers and compliance departments around their hesitation of generative AI. And although I am very bullish on the use of AI, as I know that you are as well, I don't think it's the next big bet, but that's what we're going to get into.
Love it.
Right?
Love it.
So let's set the stage for those that are listening. What is generative AI, Sue?
To put it in simple words, and if my understanding is correct, it's essentially high processing power to take a ton of data and summarize and generate based on the prompt given to it. So as an example, if I say, what's the best place to vacation in the summer, northeast, whatever, specific, it'll go on the World Wide Web, search a bunch of responses, and generate an output for the person who has prompted it to. So that's generative AI. It uses artificial intelligence to respond to a prompt or a question.
Now, interesting, because this is going to leave my point here, is that she used intelligence with air quotes. So already I feel like I'm winning and I feel pretty confident. But I think the majority of our listening audience understands generative AI in the realms of ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. There's a Claude, Perplexity. There's
Grok.
Right. There's a number of different solutions that are out there. And although you're probably listening to this and maybe you've heard of one or two of those, but then you hear Grok and you're like, wait, are they just making stuff up now? But nope. You can Google, you can ChatGPT, whatever your search preference is. Yeah. There are a number of generative AI platforms out there today that will, I'll say, specialize in a number of different things. We've started to use Google Gemini as an example to build wireframes for websites and landing pages based on inputs that we give it on an intended outcome, whether that be lead generation or education. We use ChatGPT for ideation and creative tasks. We'll use Claude for, we use Claude a lot, actually.
I like Claude.
A big favorite.
It's very personal.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there is slight differences in the algorithms for each. But one of the benefits I find is if you do create a user profile, and even if it's like free, it starts to understand you. So if you're using a platform and you're using it, like you have a lot of history with it, it starts to understand your tone.
Okay, so this is going to where the debate is going to start. All right, teed it up perfectly. So generative AI platforms need to understand what you're asking it to do to give you a relevant output, right?
Agree.
Without getting too nerdy, that process is called prompt engineering. You are engineering a prompt or an input to be able to get the response back. Thank you. So where I would say a year ago when ChatGPT first kind of hit the market, people were saying, make this email sound good, right? I need to write a letter to my boss telling him that his ideas are silly and I need to make it sound professional, right? There's a number of Super Bowl commercials that are out there now. With that, it's a use case. But many marketers, myself included, will use ChatGPT to create subject lines. We'll use it for A/B tests. We'll write it for different copy and calls to action to help expand our creative outputs to generate the best possible outcomes, right?
Right.
But here's where you just teed up an interesting comment, right? All of these AI platforms, they need to be taught. You need to train them on what it is that you're asking them to do and then give them a very clear response of what you're looking for to come back.
Yep.
Which makes compliance departments nervous because you're putting a lot of information out on the web that is confidential and or proprietary to be able to get an answer back that will help you in your business or your practice.
I have a two-part answer.
Give it to me. This is where the debate comes in.
One part is, if you think about human cognition, it works in the similar way, right? Which is when you have a kid or when someone has a kid and they're learning the first 10 years of their life. It's just a sponge, right? You're absorbing through your senses, right? You're looking, you're feeling, you're hearing, and kind of creating a narrative in your head that's called human biases. Systematically, we're using the World Wide Web to do a similar process. We're obviously not perfected it yet, but similar process because World Wide Web has the most information, the most images. The touch is obviously missing, but using the digital senses, we're helping this kid grow, which is artificial intelligence.
Right.
That's part one. And the leap hasn't happened. I think it will happen in the next 5 years.
Counter to that statement, you're helping a child learn, right?
Yes.
You're feeding it input, right? But I don't want a child running my practice.
Right. Great point. But I think where a child is different than artificial intelligence is that there is language development that needs to happen with a child. There is maturity that needs to happen with a child. Whereas with artificial intelligence, we're in 20 years, 40 years. So the kid is 40 years old, right? It's not a child. It's developing in certain industries and certain use cases and some very specific criterias. And there are certain, just as human senses, some of the development of the algorithms and the prompts are limited. And I think those will get better over time as well, right? When we have robotics play a bigger role, when we have, and don't get me started, when we have, it's where I'm futuristic, when we have quantum computers having even more power and being able to process even more things and making I know what my second point was, and making each prompt not just go to World Wide Web. Maybe there is many more data centers that we could start leveraging, right? The second part of my response to our first initial thought was you could layer up ChatGPT as an example, or any artificial intelligence as an example, with your own personal, more restricted algorithms, right? Or learning language models that could help make the case to the compliance department to say, all right, we are pulling this information, but then we're using filters to cater to our own personal variables that would make the information a little bit more relevant. Does that make sense? I know. Does that make sense?
Give it to me in a use case.
Elite.
Okay.
Right. So we have our internal artificial intelligence, right? What we did is we used
to Jim, our chief
amazing
officer.
We did a podcast. He talked about it. So essentially, what we did is we used Copilot, and we built a layer of elite intelligence. And so now we can go to this. I forget what the artificial intelligence is called.
Gemini. Genie.
Genie.
Elite Genie.
So if we go to Elite Genie and say, who are our partners, list our partners, it'll list out our partners as an example.
Let me take it a step further.
Oh, no.
Further your point, right?
Oh, no.
The large language model that Sue's talking about was given all of the inputs with all of the different clients that we work with, including their AUM, their specific practices, and their intention to move and what their preferences would be in an ideal platform, right?
No.
With all of that information, we have the firms that we partner with.
Yes.
100 plus firms, all of their information about their platforms, the services that they provide. And the Elite Genie in the use case that Jim built for our team here is if we were to go and prompt in and say, I've got Sue, she's a financial advisor based in the DC metro area.
Yeah.
You know, she wants to remain with Fidelity, but is open to a more independent platform.
No.
She's got an AUM of, $750 million.
No.
Single practice with some support staff, looking for a partner. What can I recommend to her? And based on the information that we've built and trained in this closed system,
exactly,
meaning that it's not completely open to the World Wide Web.
Exactly right.
The salesperson that is executing that prompt can go back to Sue. They, hey, Sue, you need to check out firm A, B, and C.
Exactly. And so it solves in some ways for that compliance layer because it pulls in a more restricted data set.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully the hallucinations are less because it's not leveraging everything from the World Wide Web. It's leveraging more of whatever your data source is on top of the World Wide Web. Now, another point when we talk about hallucinations, and we can share some of this data, essentially artificial intelligence today is highly reliant on platforms such as Reddit. I think 40% of artificial intelligence knowledge comes from Reddit, which is
ChatGPT specifically.
It's ChatGPT specifically, right? It's essentially just people having discussions about certain facts or non-facts, right? So
user-generated information.
Yeah.
Right, and it's their own narrative. It's
their own narrative. But then, Brian, you could argue humans have biases based on our own experiences.
100%.
So then, we create systems that have biases because we have biases.
But aren't those biases known by the humans that you're speaking to?
Not necessarily. Do you know what my biases are?
I've worked with you long enough to where I know, where the wind's going to blow me. I'm not going to get into a sailboat with you knowing that I'm not going to head in this direction. Right. But, we talk a lot about CRM being the most important piece of technology within a practice platform, right?
Yeah.
Your technology stack is leading with your CRM. It houses all of that information.
Absolutely.
And getting back to this topic of generative AI being the next big thing, if you're going to train an AI model based on the information within your CRM, you're basically saying, okay, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, what have you, here's all my client data.
Mm-hmm.
Run my practice for me. Tell me what I need to say to my clients. Tell me how I need to prospect for new clients. I think that is I was going to say red flag, probably more of a yellow flag, but I'm throwing the caution flag out there. I'm saying, like, listen, AI is important and you need to be utilizing it, but you should not trust it to run your practice.
When you say run, do you mean create analytics? What's running?
I'm saying that you create a dashboard with all of your practice KPIs.
Yeah.
And then you take that report and you put it back into the robot and you say, tell me how to make my practice better. And then you take 100% of the feedback that it's given. And you say, okay, the robot knows best. So you're not asleep at the wheel, but you're basically leaning on a third-party partner that you're inherently trusting because it's artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is great.
I would trust it, and here's why. Its processing power is higher than most average humans. It has more knowledge, more collective knowledge than average humans. And it most likely can aggregate use cases where certain variables have been assigned a success rate, right? So I almost think it could be more unbiased than a human being can, because it's relying completely on a prompt, and its goal is to give that information based on what it finds. So then, if I say to ChatGPT, help me grow my business, and it gives me, an outline of how to do it, I would 90% rely on it.
Okay. And then that outline is also going to include client messaging, prospect messaging, automations and workflows that you're basically just going to blindly trust.
I wouldn't say blindly. There might be iterations to it, but I would trust it to some degree because, again, I think it has the capability, the processing power, and an aggregate, a collective knowledge more than most. I'm not saying all, but more than most.
Okay. So then you're making the assumption that the CRM is acting on information that is known to be clean data with high integrity.
That's the key here.
Well, I said sure.
Yes, I am. Okay, yes. Well, I mean, we always say the foundation ultimately is clean, structured data, relevant data, up-to-date data. And yes, I am basing it on folks making their data understand. I read a line yesterday or recently that really hit home. And I used it on a prospect call. It was essentially data is asset.
Okay.
If you think about all asset classes as financial advisors do, your data is one of the asset. It literally is your book of business. And if you're not treating it as an asset, then you're missing a boat on something. Right? It's not oh, let me just create an Excel sheet and put 5 items in here. No, then nothing against Excel sheets. It's just having the right accurate layer of information based on your clients so you could add intelligence on top of it.
I think the thing that makes me worry the most is, and a lot of this gets into prompt engineering, and so I'm trying not to be a hater, but the thing that makes me nervous is that if I tell ChatGPT or one of these AI platforms that I want to have an aggressive investment strategy, I don't want them to recommend GameStop to me, because GameStop has been, the darling of the COVID years, right?
Well, I mean, it was a good strategy for a year or two, right?
Right, but you think about, that's actually a great example in that you had one, air quotes, influencer that was trying to disrupt the market.
And he did.
Right? ChatGPT is essentially looking for someone to do the same thing. User-generated data or user-generated opinions on YouTube, which is highly indexed by a number of AI platforms, to say, this is where you need to put all your money.
When it comes to like really making decisions on where to invest, I mean, even like people who are like accredited or, qualified to do that, like take a step back and say, hey, it's like I can educate you on what is capable, but ultimately the decision is on the person who is relying on the information there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that, I mean, could you argue that newspapers were, old school artificial intelligence? Like there is a subjectiveness to a narrative, right? There is a subjectiveness to a narrative.
Well, based on the paper, you could identify the bias, though.
Hopefully.
Right? The same thing with, news channels, right? And,
Yeah.
even a layer deeper, like independent anchors or news reporters, right? They have bias around the story that they want to tell.
But they'll tell it to you as if it's a fact.
Right.
And so I think it's not to say that don't be critically thinking, but it is to say that partner with it. I think it's a great tool that could help you look forward and grow and be part of something big and powerful in the next 5 I mean, you have to I don't think for businesses, and I know governance is going to take a big toll on some of the growth potential with artificial intelligence, but at the end of the day, like there is so much value to be gained that I think it's going to at some point comply to, because at the end of the day, like, do you really think financial advisors want to spend their time doing some of the admin work?
100% now.
Yeah. And so they're looking for an out. They're looking to...
How many outs are you going to allow then?
That's the key. And I don't know if I'm equipped to answer that question, but I do think that they are looking for an out. This is a good tool. It has its own learning curve, and I think don't lose your ability to critically think, but definitely partner with it because it's going to help you grow.
Well, and so the last point that I'll make here is probably my strongest one, in that clients want to work with the financial advisors that they can trust. Right?
I agree.
Trust is dependent upon credibility.
I agree.
And it's also driven by, so many unforeseen soft skills, right?
Yes.
Unquantifiables, if you will.
Yeah.
We talk so much about credibility is derived from designations, right? Whether you're a certified financial planner, whether if you were a certified exit planning, a SEPA certified advisor, right?
Yeah.
The robot is not. But does it know all of that information?
Probably.
You can search for it online.
Yeah.
So when you think about trust, right? We're so bullish on video because in a 2-second clip, you can tell if that's someone who looks trustworthy or not.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Judging a book solely by its cover, right? To your point earlier about you're reading a newspaper because you're trusting that the person who wrote that article is a good actor.
Yeah.
Right? That they have the reader's best intentions in mind and that they're reporting the facts, right? Yeah. So much of that in journalism has shifted over the years, but, flashback to the 80s where journalism was, old school and...
Awesome.
Right. I don't necessarily think that that is the case today, and there's a lot of mistrust about what you read on the internet, and I think it's still unforeseen as to whether or not the information that you get from ChatGPT is, or any other, I keep saying ChatGPT, I think that there's still a layer of uncertainty of whether or not an AI platform is giving you a response that you can trust.
I would agree with that. I think there is, again, I think because it's aggregating a lot of opinions out there, there is that trust layer. And I think, trust is tricky because I think trust can be slightly subjective, right? I might, how many people get hurt trusting the wrong person, right?
Right.
So, again, I think there's a learning curve to artificial intelligence, I think it is going to grow to be more trustworthy. I think there is a layer of more facts that we could feed to it that could make, but don't lose your criticality, like the ability to think and feel and use your intuition when you're reading something. I wouldn't say like just read something and take it as a fact, but that could be true of anything. That could be true of all things. I think that's an absolute.
So I would agree with that.
Oh,
And so I would agree with that. I think our chief of staff kind of says it best, where he says to me often, "Trust but verify."
there you go. There you go.
So I think that if you're utilizing AI in your practice, which, again, I know that I've debated the contradiction here, I think that you should be investigating use cases for AI in your practice, and you need to be talking to someone who has a firm understanding of all of the risks, yet all of the benefits. But in those use cases and those pilot programs, you need to be heavily cautious about the outputs that are being derived, and verifying that the information that's coming out is accurate and compliant.
I think I would agree with that. I think artificial intelligence is here to stay. I think it's going to compound to something much more magnificent. And I think if we're not using, or financial advisors and firms are not leveraging it, I think they may be left behind. At the end of the day, can I just read this? I thought this was really cool.
Yeah.
It's essentially is AI turns CRM data into intelligence, summarizing meetings, writing tailored follow-up, and predicting client needs. And I think at the very base level, that's the value. Just at the very base level.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's probably one of the best use cases that we see.
Yeah.
The advisors that we work with.
Did I convert you, Brian?
No.
What?
I still use an abundance of caution when utilizing AI, and I use it every day.
Yeah.
I said, and it does make me faster. It does make me more efficient. But I am not the most efficient because I'm still fact-checking everything that comes out.
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I think that AI and agents, as they become more prominent, even more prominent in the next 5 to 10 years, will enhance productivity for firms and will allow advisors to do more with less. Would you agree with that statement?
I don't know.
That's that one I would agree with.
I would say that it would allow advisors to do more, not necessarily with less.
Oh, I think. Okay, I think I do believe that it'll allow advisors to do more with less.
See, I think that, and maybe this is just me, I've been watching the job market a lot recently, and how, the national narrative is AI is replacing jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But they said the same thing around
Internet boom.
No, I was going back even further. Henry Ford and the production line. The
assembly line.
The assembly line.
I love that.
When we started the Industrial Revolution,
yes,
and we started introducing machines into the workforce, everyone was like, oh man, we're gonna lose so many jobs. But that's not the case. The job roles have evolved, just like I think financial service will evolve.
I agree.
And I think that the quality of service will only increase, but I don't think that there's going to be fewer roles. I think that those roles will just evolve to where you may start to see data analysts in roles. You may start to see prompt engineers show up in financial service practices.
I think that's a fair distinction. I think what I meant with do more with less is advisors will be able to cater to a lot more clients, but not have to hire, operational staff to do a lot of the paperwork that's involved with having more clients. Not to say that role shift wouldn't happen. There, to your point, maybe more analysts I think AI is going to create more jobs. I think it's going to create more different kind of jobs. I agree with that.
I think, and this is my personal opinion, I think that financial services is going to turn into a highly specialized industry, similar to what the fitness industry is going through now, where if you look 10 years ago, a gym was a gym was a gym. You know,
Yeah.
it had weights, it had a treadmill, and they had personal
Elliptical
trainers,
machine.
right? Exactly right. But now you have CrossFit gyms, you have High Rocks gyms,
Pilates,
DECA gyms,
yoga.
you've got Pilates, yogas, reformers. I mean, you've got the Planet Fitnesses that are out there, but then you also have the Equinox at the higher end who wants a higher touch.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think financial services is going to turn into that model.
I think that's fair. That I could see happen. Yeah. I think that I think beautiful things and abundance of, you know, you mentioned industrial revolution, and I think we are in an information revolution. I think for the past 20, 30 years, we've kind of slowly gone in the process of this abundance of information that's just accessible everywhere. And I think do use caution, do verify, but I think it's going to make us that much more productive.
I agree.
I finally got it. I agree with Brian.
I agree. Well, listen, I think that's a great place to end. Any final thoughts on generative AI?
Use it with caution.
Trust but verify.
I like that one.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for listening into our debate. I hope that you found it informative. If you were looking for ways to trust and verify and speak with Sue about the different ways that's possible, how do they get a hold of you?
Email me at Sue Cheema at eliteconsultingpartners.com.
What if they wanted to find you on the web?
JEDI databasesolutions.com.
What if they go to an AI solution and say, who's the best person to talk to? What do you think that they're going to say?
It's going to say Sue Cheema.
Darn right it is. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.